The rain was relentless, hammering Seattle's streets like a verdict. Ethan Caldwell, alpha, lawyer, and prisoner of his own success, stood in his penthouse office, staring at the city's blurred skyline. His life was a contract, signed, sealed, and suffocating. At 32, Ethan had built a fortress of ambition. His law firm, Caldwell and Associates, was a titan in Seattle's legal scene, handling high-profile corporate cases with surgical precision. But tonight, as he loosened his tie, the weight of his latest victory felt hollow. The Omega he'd married 6 months ago, Lucas Harper, was a stranger living under his roof. Their arranged marriage, orchestrated by their families to merge wealth and status, was a transaction colder than the Puget Sound. Lucas, with his sharp wit and icy reserve, had made it clear this was duty, not desire. Ethan's phone buzzed. A text from his mother, dinner tonight. Bring Lucas. Don't embarrass us. He sighed, rubbing his temples. The Caldwell name demanded perfection, public smiles, private silences. He'd agreed to the marriage to secure a partnership with Harper Industries, Lucas's family empire. But every night, lying in separate bedrooms, Ethan felt the cost. An alpha was supposed to lead, to bond, to feel. Instead, he was unraveling. He drove home, through the drizzle, the city's lights smearing across his windshield. Their queen and mansion loomed, all glass and sharp angles, a monument to their sterile union. Inside, Lucas sat at the dining table, reading a book, his pale face illuminated by a single lamp. His Omega scent, crisp like cedar and frost, hit Ethan like a quiet accusation. Dinner at my parents', Ethan said, voice clipped. 8 o'clock. Lucas didn't look up. I'll be ready. His tone was flat, practiced, a wall Ethan couldn't breach. The drive to the Caldwell estate was silent, the air thick with unspoken resentment. Ethan gripped the steering wheel, his alpha instincts clawing at him to bridge the gap, to demand something, anything, from Lucas. But Lucas stared out the window, his delicate features unreadable, his hands folded tightly in his lap. Ethan wondered, not for the first time, what lay beneath that cold exterior. Was there warmth, pain, or just indifference? At the estate, the facade began. Ethan's parents, Margaret and Richard, greeted them with polished smiles. The dining room gleamed with crystal and mahogany, a stage for their performance as the perfect couple. Lucas played his part flawlessly, charming, articulate, untouchable. But Ethan caught the flicker in his green eyes, a spark of something raw when their hands brushed passing a wine glass. It was fleeting, but it burned. Back home, Ethan couldn't sleep. That touch lingered, a ghost of heat in his veins. He paced the living room, the city's hum a distant pulse. Lucas emerged from his room, wrapped in a sweater, his guard momentarily down. Can't sleep? He asked, voice softer than usual. Ethan stopped, startled. No, you. Lucas shrugged, leaning against the doorway. This house feels like a cage. The honesty hit Ethan like a punch. He stepped closer, searching Lucas's face. Then why stay? Lucas's gaze hardened, but his voice cracked. Because I don't know how to leave. The words hung between them, fragile and heavy. Ethan's alpha instincts surged, urging him to close the distance, to unravel the enigma of Lucas Harper. But Lucas turned away, retreating to his room, leaving Ethan with the echo of his own heartbeat. The next morning, Ethan buried himself in work, but Lucas's words clung to him. A cage. He saw it now. Their marriage, their lives bound by obligation. At the firm, a new case landed on his desk. A pro bono defense for a local LGBTQ plus shelter facing eviction. Ethan hesitated. His firm didn't take charity cases. But something, maybe Lucas's quiet rebellion, pushed him to accept. He visited the shelter that afternoon, a cramped building in Capitol Hill. The director, a wiry woman named Claire, showed him around. These kids have nowhere else, she said, pointing to a group of teens laughing over a board game. Society chews them up. We're their last stand. Ethan felt a pang. He'd grown up privileged, shielded from the struggles of those who didn't fit the mold. As an alpha, he'd never questioned his place. But Lucas Ethan wondered what battles his Omega had fought before their marriage. The thought gnawed at him. That evening, he found Lucas in the kitchen, chopping vegetables with precision. You're home early, Lucas said, not looking up. New case, Ethan replied, leaning against the counter. A shelter. They're fighting to stay open. Lucas paused, knife hovering. Why'd you take it? Ethan faltered. Felt right. Lucas's eyes flicked to him, sharp and searching. You don't strike me as the bleeding heart type. Maybe I'm changing, Ethan said, surprising himself. Lucas snorted, but there was a hint of smile. Careful, Alpha. You might start feeling things. The jab stung, but it also sparked something. Ethan stepped closer, their shoulders brushing. Lucas froze, his breath catching. For a moment, the air crackled, alive with possibility. Then Lucas stepped back, the moment gone. Over the next week, Ethan threw himself into the shelter case. He met with Claire, drafted motions, and rallied pro bono volunteers. The work felt alive, purposeful, unlike the corporate grind. But at home, Lucas remained distant, their interactions a dance of sharp words and stolen glances. Ethan caught himself watching Lucas. How he moved, how his lips quirked when he thought no one saw. The Omega was a puzzle, and Ethan was hooked. One night, after a long day, Ethan found Lucas on the balcony, staring at the city. The rain had stopped, leaving the air crisp. You ever think about running? Lucas asked, voice barely above a whisper. Ethan leaned on the railing beside him. From what? This. Lucas gestured vaguely. Us. The expectations. Ethan's chest tightened. All the time. Lucas turned, their eyes locking. In the dim light, Lucas looked vulnerable, his walls crumbling. Ethan's hand twitched, aching to reach out. But before he could, Lucas stepped back, the moment slipping away. The shelter case escalated. Ethan discovered the eviction was tied to a shady developer, a client of Harper Industries. The conflict of interest loomed, threatening to unravel everything. Ethan faced a choice: protect his marriage's fragile truce or fight for the shelter. He chose the latter, driven by a fire he couldn't name. He confronted Lucas that night. Your family's company is behind the eviction. Lucas's face paled. I didn't know. Didn't you? Ethan pressed, anger flaring. Or did you just not care? Lucas's eyes blazed. You think I'm heartless? You don't know me. Then let me. Ethan shot back, stepping closer. Stop hiding. Lucas's breath hitched, and for a moment, Ethan thought he'd break. But Lucas turned away, leaving Ethan with the weight of his own words. The next day, Ethan dove deeper into the case, uncovering documents linking Harper Industries to a pattern of gentrification. The shelter wasn't just a casualty, it was a target. He worked late, fueled by anger and something deeper, something tied to Lucas's guarded eyes. When he got home, Lucas was waiting. I looked into it, Lucas said, voice low. You're right. My family's involved. Ethan braced himself. And I want to help, Lucas said, meeting his gaze. I'm not them. The words shifted something in Ethan. For the first time, he saw Lucas not as an obligation, but as a partner. They stayed up, poring over documents, their shoulders brushing, the air charged. When their hands touched, neither pulled away. The spark had ignited, and Ethan knew there was no going back. The Seattle skyline glittered beyond the window, but Ethan's world had narrowed to the man beside him. Lucas's fingers lingered on the documents, his Omega scent sharper now, laced with something new, resolve. Their hands brushed again, and this time, Lucas didn't flinch. You're serious about this? Ethan asked, voice low, testing the waters. Lucas met his gaze, green eyes fierce. I'm not my family. I won't let them destroy that shelter. Ethan felt a surge of respect, tinged with something hotter. He'd underestimated Lucas, mistaking his quiet for apathy. Now, seeing him lean over the table, sleeves rolled up, jaw set, Ethan glimpsed the fire beneath the ice. It drew him in, dangerous and undeniable. They worked through the night, piecing together a case against Harper Industries. Lucas knew the company's inner workings, contracts, loopholes, hidden deals. His insights were sharp, surgical, and Ethan realized Lucas wasn't just a figurehead heir. He was brilliant, a strategist in his own right. By dawn, they had a plan: expose the developers' tactics in court and rally public support for the shelter. But the stakes were personal. Lucas was defying his family, risking their wrath. Ethan saw the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands trembled when he mentioned his father, Charles Harper. He'll cut me off, Lucas admitted, staring at the floor. Everything, money, status, my place in the family. Ethan hesitated, then placed a hand on Lucas's arm. You don't need them. You're more than their name. Lucas looked up, startled, his guard slipping. For a moment, they were just two men, raw and unguarded. Ethan's alpha instincts roared, urging him to pull Lucas closer, to claim the connection sparking between them. But he held back, sensing Lucas wasn't ready. The next day, Ethan filed a motion to delay the shelter's eviction, citing Harper Industries' conflicts of interest. The legal world buzzed. Ethan Caldwell, corporate shark, taking on a charity case? His firm's partners were livid, warning him about burning bridges. But Ethan didn't care. For the first time, his work felt like more than a paycheck. Lucas, meanwhile, dug deeper into his family's records, slipping into their downtown office after hours. He returned with a USB drive, his face pale, but determined. Emails, he said, handing it to Ethan. Proof they bribed city officials to fast-track the eviction. Ethan stared at him. You could have been caught. I wasn't, Lucas said, a faint smirk breaking through. I'm not as delicate as you think. The quip sparked a grin from Ethan, and for a moment, the tension eased. They were a team now, bound by a shared fight. But the air between them crackled with more than strategy. Every glance, every accidental touch, fueled a heat Ethan couldn't ignore. The shelter case gained traction. Claire, the director, organized a rally, and Ethan and Lucas attended, blending into the crowd of activists and displaced teens. The energy was electric, signs waving, voices chanting. Lucas stood close, his shoulder brushing Ethan's. When a protester shoved past, Ethan instinctively pulled Lucas out of the way, his hand lingering on Lucas's waist. You okay? Ethan asked, voice rough. Lucas nodded, his breath uneven. Yeah, thanks. Their eyes locked, and the world faded. Ethan's pulse raced, his alpha side screaming to close the distance. Lucas's lips parted, as if to speak, but then he stepped back, breaking the spell. Ethan cursed himself for pushing too far, too fast. Back home, the USB drive revealed a goldmine. Emails detailing Harper Industries' plan to replace the shelter with luxury condos. But one name stood out, Margaret Caldwell, Ethan's mother. She'd brokered the deal, tying their family's fortunes together. Ethan felt sick. His own mother had orchestrated this, knowing it would trap him and Lucas in a web of obligation. He confronted her at the estate. How could you? He demanded, slamming the emails on her desk. You used us, me, Lucas, the shelter, for profit. Margaret's eyes were cold. Business is business, Ethan. You and Lucas were a means to an end. Don't get sentimental. Ethan's fists clenched. I'm done being your pawn. He stormed out, driving straight to the pier where the rally had ended. Lucas was there, alone, staring at the water. The city's lights reflected on the waves, and Ethan's heart pounded as he approached. My mother's involved, he said, voice raw. This whole marriage, it was her plan. Lucas turned, his expression unreadable. So we're both pawns. Not anymore, Ethan said, stepping closer. I'm fighting this. With you. Lucas's eyes softened, and for the first time, he didn't pull away. Their hands brushed, and Ethan felt it again, that spark fierce and alive. This time, Lucas didn't retreat. The next week was a whirlwind. Ethan and Lucas worked side by side, their partnership seamless. They leaked the emails to a local journalist, sparking outrage. The shelter's story went viral, and public pressure mounted. But so did the threats. Ethan's firm cut his resources, and Lucas's father sent a chilling message, back off, or you're out. Lucas didn't waver. I'm done living for them, he told Ethan, his voice steady. This is my fight now. Ethan admired him more than ever. Lucas wasn't just an omega bound by tradition. He was a force, carving his own path, and Ethan wanted to walk it with him. One night, after a strategy session, they stood on their balcony, the city sprawling below. Lucas's hand rested on the railing, inches from Ethan's. Why do you care so much? Lucas asked, voice soft. About the shelter. About me. Ethan turned, meeting his gaze. Because you make me feel alive. Lucas's breath caught, and before Ethan could second-guess himself, he leaned in. Their lips met, tentative at first, then fierce, a collision of need and truth. Lucas's hands gripped Ethan's jacket, pulling him closer, and for a moment, the world was just them, two souls breaking free. When they pulled apart, Lucas's eyes were bright, unguarded. I didn't expect you, he whispered. Ethan smiled, heart pounding. Neither did I. The kiss changed everything. They were no longer just allies. They were partners, in every sense. But the fight was far from over. Harper Industries doubled down, and Ethan's firm issued an ultimatum. Drop the case or lose his partnership. The shelter's fate hung in the balance, and so did their marriage. As they prepared for the court hearing, Ethan felt a clarity he'd never known. Lucas wasn't just his omega, he was his equal, his fire. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. The courtroom was a battlefield, its polished wood and stern faces masking the war beneath. Ethan stood at the podium, his notes meticulous, his heart racing. Lucas sat in the gallery, his presence a quiet anchor. The shelter's fate hinged on today. Ethan's opening argument was sharp, exposing Harper Industries' bribes and the developer's greed. The judge, a steely woman named Hargrove, listened intently. But the defense, Harper's legal team, was ruthless, painting the shelter as a blight on Seattle's progress. Ethan felt the weight of their wealth, their influence pressing down. Lucas's testimony was the turning point. He took the stand, his voice steady but raw, detailing his family's role in the eviction. "I was raised to protect their legacy," he said, eyes scanning the room. "But legacies built on lies don't last." The gallery murmured, and Ethan saw pride flicker in Lucas's gaze. The hearing stretched into days, each one a grind of motions and counterarguments. Outside, protesters rallied, their signs a sea of color. Ethan and Lucas joined them during breaks, their hands brushing in the crowd, a silent promise. But the strain was evident. Lucas's family had frozen his accounts, and Ethan's firm had sidelined him. They were outcasts now, fighting a Goliath with dwindling resources. One night, after a grueling session, they collapsed on their couch, exhausted. Lucas rested his head on Ethan's shoulder, a small act that felt monumental. "We're losing, aren't we?" Lucas murmured. Ethan's hand found his. "Not yet. We've got the truth." Lucas laughed softly, a sound Ethan craved. "You're such an alpha. Always so sure. Only about you," Ethan said, tilting Lucas's chin up. Their kiss was slow, grounding, a reminder of what they were building amid the chaos. The next day, a breakthrough came. Claire, the shelter's director, uncovered a whistleblower, a former Harper employee with records of illegal payoffs. Ethan and Lucas pored over the documents, their excitement palpable. They filed an emergency motion, and the court buzzed with anticipation. But the victory was short-lived. That night, Ethan's car was vandalized, tires slashed, a clear warning. Lucas's face paled when he saw it. "This is my fault," he said, voice shaking. "I dragged you into this." Ethan grabbed his shoulders. "We're in this together. They can't scare us." Lucas's eyes searched his, vulnerable. "What if we lose everything?" "Then we start over," Ethan said fiercely. "As long as I have you, I don't care." Lucas's breath hitched, and he pulled Ethan into a kiss, desperate and deep. They clung to each other, the world's threats fading. In that moment, Ethan knew Lucas was his home, not the mansion, not the firm. The final hearing loomed. Ethan and Lucas worked tirelessly, their partnership seamless. They rallied the shelter's residents, whose stories of survival swayed public opinion. The media frenzy grew, and Harper Industries' stock plummeted. But Charles Harper wasn't done. He cornered Lucas outside the courthouse, his face a mask of fury. "You're betraying your blood," he spat. Lucas stood tall. "I'm choosing what's right." Charles's eyes narrowed. "You'll regret this." Ethan stepped between them, his alpha instincts flaring. "Leave him alone." Charles sneered but backed off, his threat lingering. Ethan felt a chill, but Lucas's hand in his steadied him. They were stronger together, unbreakable. The court's ruling came on a gray morning. Judge Hargrove's voice was firm. The shelter would stay, the eviction blocked. Harper Industries faced fines and an investigation. The gallery erupted in cheers, and Ethan turned to Lucas, their eyes meeting in triumph. They'd done it, not just save the shelter, but reclaim their lives. Outside, the rain had stopped, the city gleaming. Ethan and Lucas walked to the pier, the same one where their spark had ignited. Lucas leaned against the railing, his smile soft. "We're free," he said. Ethan took his hand, the touch electric. "We're just beginning." Their kiss was a promise, sealed under Seattle's vast sky. The fight had cost them family, status, security, but had given them something greater, each other. And that was enough. The victory was sweet, but the aftermath was bitter. Ethan and Lucas returned to their mansion, now a hollow shell. The shelter was safe, but their family's wrath was unrelenting. Ethan's mother cut him off, her final words a cold dismissal. "You've chosen ruin." Lucas's father went further, leaking a smear campaign labeling them as traitors to their legacies. Ethan felt the sting, but Lucas bore it worse. He'd always been the dutiful son, molded by his family's expectations. Now ostracized, he seemed smaller, his confidence fraying. Ethan found him one morning in the kitchen, staring at a news article on his phone. The headline screamed, "Harper Air betrays empire for radical cause." "It's not true," Ethan said, taking the phone. "You're not a traitor. You're a hero." Lucas's laugh was hollow. "Heroes don't lose everything." Ethan knelt beside him, their hands entwining. "You haven't lost me." Lucas's eyes softened, and he leaned into Ethan, their foreheads touching. It was a quiet moment, but it anchored them. They were no longer just an alpha and omega bound by contract. They were partners, forged in fire. They decided to leave the mansion. It was too big, too tied to their past. They rented a small apartment in Capitol Hill, closer to the shelter, closer to the life they wanted. The move was humbling. Ethan traded tailored suits for jeans. Lucas sold his designer watches to cover rent. But the simplicity felt right, like shedding a skin that never fit. Ethan took on freelance legal work, focusing on advocacy cases. Lucas volunteered at the shelter, mentoring teens who reminded him of his younger self, alone, searching for identity. They built a new rhythm, their days filled with purpose, their nights with each other. Every touch, every kiss deepened their bond, a fire that warmed the coldest Seattle nights. But the past wasn't done with them. One evening, Claire called, her voice tense. The developers appealing the ruling. They're coming for the shelter again. Ethan and Lucas regrouped, their resolve unbroken. They rallied the community, organizing fundraisers and petitions. The shelter became a symbol, a beacon for those society overlooked. Ethan marveled at Lucas's strength, how he spoke to crowds, his voice steady, his passion infectious. The Omega who'd once hidden behind walls was now a leader, unafraid. Their family's influence lingered, though. Ethan's former partners at the firm spread rumors, costing him clients. Lucas's father pulled strings, delaying the shelter's funding. The pressure tested them, but it also revealed their resilience. They fought side by side, their love a shield against the world. One night, after a fundraiser, they walked through Pike Place Market, the air sharp with salt and fish. Lucas stopped at a flower stall, his fingers tracing a bouquet of dahlias. "I used to think love was a luxury," he said, voice soft. "Something I'd never afford." Ethan took his hand, the flowers between them. "And now?" Lucas smiled, his eyes bright. "Now I know it's worth everything." They kissed under the market's neon glow, the world fading. Ethan felt whole, his alpha instincts no longer a demand but a harmony, tuned to Lucas's rhythm. The appeal hearing loomed, a final stand. Ethan and Lucas prepared meticulously, their apartment a war room of legal pads and coffee mugs. The community rallied behind them, the shelter's residents testifying with raw honesty. Ethan watched Lucas in court, his testimony a blade, cutting through the developer's lies. Judge Hargrove's ruling was swift. The appeal was denied, the shelter's future secured. The victory was theirs, but came at cost. Ethan's firm blacklisted him, and Lucas's family disowned him entirely. They stood on their apartment's balcony, the city sprawling below, and faced the truth. They were on their own. "We did it," Lucas said, his voice steady but tired. "But now what?" Ethan pulled him close, their breaths mingling. "Now we live. For us." They kissed, the city's hum a backdrop to their vow. They'd lost wealth, status, family, but they'd gained freedom, purpose, and each other. The fire that sparked with one touch had become a flame, unextinguished. Spring arrived in Seattle, softening the city's edges. Ethan and Lucas stood on the pier, the same one where their spark had ignited. The Space Needle gleamed in the distance, a quiet witness to their journey. Their new life was simple but full. Ethan's freelance work grew, his reputation as an advocate spreading. Lucas became a counselor at the shelter, his empathy a lifeline for its residents. They were no longer defined by their families' names but by the choices they'd made, the love they'd fought for. One morning, Ethan found Lucas sketching on their balcony, his pencil tracing the city's skyline. "What's this?" Ethan asked, peering over his shoulder. "A dream," Lucas said, smiling. "A community center, for kids like the ones at the shelter." Ethan's heart swelled. Lucas's vision was bold, a legacy of their own. They began planning, pooling their resources, reaching out to Claire and the community. The shelter's victory had inspired others, and donations poured in. They found a derelict building, its bones strong, and envisioned a space for healing, learning, love. The work was grueling, permits, fundraising, late nights. But it was theirs. They laughed more, argued less, their bond deepening with every shared goal. Ethan marveled at Lucas's resilience, how he'd transformed from a cold Omega into a beacon of hope. Lucas, in turn, saw Ethan not as an alpha to appease, but as a partner to cherish. One evening, at a community fundraiser, Lucas took the stage. His voice carried, strong and clear, telling their story, not just the shelters but theirs. "We were strangers," he said, his eyes finding Ethan's in the crowd. "Bound by duty, not choice. But we chose each other, and that changed everything." The crowd cheered, and Ethan felt tears prick his eyes. Lucas stepped down, and Ethan pulled him into a kiss, unashamed, their love a declaration. The community embraced them, their story a testament to courage and connection. The center opened on a bright June day, its doors wide for Seattle's forgotten. Ethan and Lucas stood together, cutting the ribbon, their hands entwined. The crowd, shelter kids, activists, neighbors, roared with pride. Claire hugged them, tears in her eyes. "You gave us a future," she said. That night, they returned to the pier, the city aglow. Lucas leaned against Ethan, his warmth a constant now. "I never thought I'd have this," he said, voice soft. "A life that feels like mine." Ethan kissed his temple. "You deserve it. We both do." They stood in silence, the waves lapping below. Their marriage, once a contract, was now a vow, forged in fire, sealed in love. They'd lost much, but gained more, a purpose, a home, each other. As the stars emerged, Ethan took Lucas's hand, their fingers lacing. The touch still sparked, a reminder of the fire that had changed them. Seattle stretched before them, vast and alive, a canvas for their future. And they knew, with every beat of their hearts, that this was only the beginning.